Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we've got a real economic detective story on our hands. For years, the data coming out of China has been, well, weird. It's been throwing up these paradoxes that have left economists scratching their heads because none of it fits the standard playbook. We're going to figure out why.
So let's just kick things off with a question that's pretty mind-bending, and it really gets to the heart of this whole mystery. What if a country got incredibly good at making things, more efficient, more productive, but instead of creating wealth, what if it actually made everyone poorer? It sounds totally backward, but it's exactly what the data seems to be telling us. You know, there's a phrase economists use for this kind of situation. It's a very polite way of saying that the numbers we're seeing are so strange, so paradoxical, that the standard models we've used for decades to understand economies just completely break when you try to apply them here. The data is telling a story that our theories just aren't equipped to handle.
Okay, so let's get our hands dirty and actually look at the evidence. We're going to walk through three core paradoxes, three sets of data that just defy logic. Think of these as the main clues in our investigation.
So first on our list is what's called the capital services paradox. Starting back in the 2000s and then really kicking into high gear after 2009, China went on one of the most insane building sprees in all of human history. We're talking factories, high-speed rail, solar plants. The scale was just unbelievable.
And here's where things get absolutely wild. The amount of productive stuff, all those factories and machines, grew by 400%. That's a five-fold increase. But, and this is the crazy part, the economic value of all that capacity, its return, it completely cratered. It fell by 80%.
So how does that even happen? Normally, when you invest and build more, you create more value. But here, it's like a historic investment boom actually destroyed value. This isn't just a little odd. It basically breaks the fundamental laws of supply and demand. This is our first major clue that something is very, very different here.
All right, clue number 2 has to do with prices. Now, there's this old rule in economics called the Phillips curve. It's pretty simple. When an economy is booming and there's a lot of money sloshing around, prices are supposed to go up. You get inflation. Makes sense.
But in China, especially after 2009, it was like they took that rulebook and just tossed it out the window. The country had this massive credit expansion, incredible GDP growth, but instead of inflation, prices actually started falling. They were stuck in deflation for years.
And this is our second giant red flag. You had all the ingredients for a huge inflationary bonfire. Tons of credit, lots of growth, but the fire never even started. In fact, it's like the room just kept getting colder, with prices constantly falling. The standard economic toolkit was useless here.
Okay, this brings us to paradox number 3, and honestly, this is the big one. This is the one that ties it all together. It's all about efficiency, or what economists call total factor productivity. Basically, it's a measure of how good you are at turning labor and capital into actual stuff.
And this slide just lays the puzzle out perfectly. The data is clear. Chinese companies got way better, way more productive after 2009. But the financial rewards from all that innovation, they never appeared. Prices didn't go up. And the slice of the pie going to workers, it actually went down.
So where did the value go? I mean, seriously, if you're making things better, faster, and cheaper, you are creating economic value. But that value wasn't going to the companies as profit, and it wasn't going to the workers as higher wages. The gains from all this productivity just vanished into thin air. This is the core paradox we have to solve.
So to solve this, to make any sense of these paradoxes, some economists are proposing a totally new way of looking at it. The idea is that economies can run on one of two different operating systems, kind of like a computer, each with its own fundamental set of rules.
So on one side, you have the system we're all familiar with. Let's call it demand disciplined. The goal is profit. If you don't make money, you're out. Simple. But on the other side, you have this capacity disciplined system. And here the game is completely different. The goal isn't profit, it's just to grow, to grab market share. Unprofitable companies don't die. They get propped up by cheap loans. This CD system, they argue, is the key to understanding China's economy.
Okay, so if China is running on a different economic OS, you have to ask, when did they install it? How did this massive shift even happen?
And it turns out the evidence points to a single event that acted as the trigger, the 2009 global financial crisis. China's response was a truly colossal stimulus package. And while that flood of money saved the economy, it seems to have had this completely unintentional side effect. It basically flipped a switch, rewiring the entire economy away from profits and towards pure capacity growth, locking it into this new CD mode.
And with this new framework,
we can finally crack the code on that biggest paradox: how getting better at making things can somehow lead to falling prices and wages. The answer is baked right into this capacity-disciplined operating system.
Okay, so picture this. A company innovates, gets more efficient. Now, in a normal world, they'd pocket that extra cash as profit, but not here. To gain market share, they immediately slash their prices. And their competitors, even the inefficient ones, they don't go out of business. They get those cheap loans we talked about, and they're forced to match the lower price to survive. So what happens? The entire benefit of that new technology gets passed straight to the consumer as a lower price. Nobody makes any more money.
And get this, it's not just contained to one industry. It creates a chain reaction, a cascade. For example, if you have massive overcapacity in steel, steel becomes dirt cheap. That lowers the cost for car makers, which then encourages them to build overcapacity. This ripples right through the supply chain, amplifying the price-cutting pressure everywhere.
And we're not talking about a small tweak here. The research suggests this cascade acts like a deflation amplifier. It makes that price-cutting pressure from any new innovation about 40% stronger than it would be otherwise. The whole system is basically hardwired to push prices down, down, down.
Okay, so we've been deep in the weeds of economic paradoxes. But what does this actually mean for the rest of the world? Well, in short, it means China's unique economic model has turned it into a massive, powerful engine for global deflation.
And you can see the results of this all over the place. When a high-tech Chinese electric car sells for half the price of its competitors, or when solar panel prices fall so low they basically wipe out foreign firms, this model explains why. It's the natural result of an economic system where every single efficiency gain gets channeled directly into a lower price tag for the global consumer.
Which leaves us with a really tough final question. On the one hand, consumers around the world get amazing high-tech stuff for super cheap prices. That's a huge win, right? But on the other hand, producers in other countries who are playing by the normal rules of trying to make a profit find themselves facing a competitor that's structurally designed to give its innovation away. It's a global economic puzzle, and there are no easy answers.